just record this on here, and then I can just sort of ask some questions, and then you can give me an answer there. All right?
Sure.
Cool, Patrick. All right, so just that first question again. What was one of your biggest challenges prior to joining the program?
Prior to joining the program, biggest challenge for me would have been in terms of not enough hours in the day for all of the activities that I was actually doing. And on reflection, they were really at the detriment of my own personal health, the physical, the spiritual, and also my emotional well-being. So it was actually looking at my timetable and recognizing and identifying, they may be things that I'm really interested in. However, there was just too much I was doing. There weren't enough hours in the day. I wasn't giving myself the time. I wasn't giving my body the nutrition, the correct nutrition. I wasn't giving my body the time to recover. I wasn't actually really just cramming everything in, and my body was really out of kilter and on overload. Biggest challenge that I had. I'm highly active, extremely active, like to be active, but with the knowledge I had of training and limited nutrition, but a lot in training, I still wasn't able to navigate it in a manner that was actually really good for my body. And I noticed it in my sleep patterns. I noticed it in my eating habits. I noticed that it was starting to impact on my work. It was starting to impact on my own individual personal time, and just felt really lethargic, feeling out of sorts. Just felt like I was living each day with no real purpose, and it was like Groundhog Day over and over again. And it became a vicious cycle. I got caught in not really stopping, taking a step back, and looking at what was really going on in my life, and how it was impacting on my own personal health. And that also impacted on the things that I engaged with, which also included the people that I engaged with.
Brilliant. So what were some of those, with all that going on, you had so much on your plate and your body wasn't responding there. What were some of the concepts that we introduced in the first couple of months that really changed how you approach that?
Yeah, sure. Definitely what I liked, and I use the word with you a lot, is, is establishing routines and protecting those routines. And it started off with real basic, simple steps, building up a good firm foundation of identifying time, looking at basic nutrition that need changes that I could make that weren't, let's say, they weren't extreme. They were just initial steps of setting up a foundation, of looking at how many times I was eating, increasing in certain foods that I hadn't actually included in my diet. For example, getting a lot more greens and then getting a lot more vegetables, eating regularly and consistently in terms of portion sizes, and maintaining that routine. Also looking and setting up a basic routine in the morning of getting up, taking my cider lemon drinking 500-600 mils of water as a first protocol, then make my bed, obviously. So setting up those morning routines, the daily regular eating routines, and also at night in terms of the sitting down, taking time, which I use prior to sleeping around 10 o'clock is mindfulness. So that's a time for me to unwind. It's a time for me to reflect as well, looking at what I've done for the day, what went well, what didn't go well, and making just a little conscious little goal there for the next day of what I can do next steps forward. So just initially setting up that baseline, and then being consistent with that for 2 to 3 weeks. Those were the key elements that I took out of our initial meetings.
Brilliant. Yeah, the big part there is course correction, right? Like that awareness of stepping back and looking at it. A lot of people are just going through their day and it's all automatic, as it might sound simple stuff, but you start to bring some awareness to things that are sabotaging that process. You're busy, but you're not being productive, and it can make a tweak to how you move forward and what you can simplify.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of behaviors like automatis, it's automatic. We, as you mentioned, the word, sabotage, and there are a lot of things that I was doing that were actually sabotaging my well-being, and that I had become so used to the routines that I had actually established, that it wasn't until I was actually given that course direction in terms of what it might look like, that I'm able to stand back and reflect on it and actually be able to look at it more objectively. And having you know what you know, but sometimes it's also good to have the scaffolding to be scaffolded through, to be supported through it, to be able to sit down and look at it, reflect, and then to make those changes consciously, and then to actually put them into action. So yeah, so I like it in terms of the words that you've used. That definitely course correction and identifying, the barriers, I call them, or those things that sabotage a good outcome.
Yeah, awesome. So with these adjustments we made and a lot of reflection and that sort of tweaks on what you were doing, how did those adjustments help you outside of simply the fitness realm?
Yeah, sure. So one, for me, I found out with setting up these routines, they help me to identify the importance of a schedule, of my routines, and prioritizing what it is that I do. So the eating protocols, as well as the protocols in the morning and the protocols at night, help me to look at, okay, so what is it now I need to add into the schedule? What is it I need to take out? That's sabotaging, and what is it? And I already know what I needed to do to add in terms of a training routine, and actually developing consistently a routine of exercise that's consistent with how I felt, because previously I guess I'm a highly active person. I'm a real go forward type of person, but I always felt like I was operating always on an empty tank, but because of my mentality, I would keep pushing myself. So in terms of really enjoying what it was that I was doing, I could say that I wasn't really fully getting the full benefits or the enjoyment from it. And it seemed more laborious, but because I have the mentality of just pushing, that actually was, again, sabotaging a lot of the positive gains that I can make or could be making. So with the new routines that I had put in place, as I mentioned before in our meetings and discussions, there's a different level of energy. It's a more natural source of energy rather than one that is me pushing myself mentally through that barrier. If there comes a time where mentality is really good to have, but when you're really pushing it uphill every day, I can see how it just made it harder for me some days to actually wake up and to be mentally strong enough to say, you know what, carry on, because I couldn't. With the new routines I had put in place, definitely noticed that my outlook was sharper, my enthusiasm was at an all-time high. There was more of wanting to engage rather than having to engage with the activities, and everything seemed to just flow more naturally, and it was just a normal part of my daily routine rather than a laborious task that I know in my mind through my previous years of training that this is something you need to do. It's actually something that I needed to do, but I wanted to do it. And
that's really cool.
The major
at some
changes.
point, willpower runs out, right? And it's just, once you feel like you want to do it, you feel like you've got the energy to recover from it. It becomes something that is not something you're fighting, and that internal battle is not there anymore.
Oh yeah, exactly, and that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that internal battle. I mean, I'm an old warhorse, so I've got that mentality, but even that will expire, and even that actually has its expiry date. But when you've actually tapped into a natural resource of what your body can do naturally, and it's all in alignment, it just makes everything more enjoyable, and you just want to engage in it. You want to maintain that routine. Yeah.
And you can do it long term, 100%. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So just to give, I guess, some more sort of facts on what you were doing in the program, let's to sort of share some results and that experience that you've had within the Meta project. Obviously, you've been through only the first couple of months at this point. What were some of those results that you got so far?
Yeah, so quality of sleep, definitely a major factor. Around the nutrition, the main one I've always said to you is, I'm a pretty thick-set guy in there, but I always had this feeling of feeling bloated. I noticed when I'd made those changes to my nutrition, especially around the increased, eating more greens, etc., and portioning food and eating more consistently rather than eating all at once. So I'd noticed that, especially, and also gut health. I got into that as well, gut health. And I noticed that feeling of feeling bloated, no longer there. I didn't feel heavy. Didn't feel after eating every time I wanted to have a sleep. It felt that it was more that my body was absorbing the energy, and this energy in turn was actually giving me the energy to actually then go and do more. So the sleeping protocols, the eating protocols, and the exercise. And I do have to be careful, as I mentioned to you, the routines that I've got. I have to be careful around weights because with now a heart condition, I've got to monitor in terms of my engaging with weights. It's an old mentality that I have. When I lift steel, I want to lift heavy, but now it's about being smart. And recoveries, I usually go through a 2-3 week pain barrier, but being real easy on in terms of my routine and my schedule at the gym and being measured. It's the recovery that I haven't really had that muscle achiness, and my recovery is really good for the next day. So that's a good thing. But also being smart with the training, with being taught about protocols and scheduling and allowing the body time to recover. And it's also meant that my engagement with my gym work and that, much more eager, looking forward to it. I've got actually extra energy to call on if I need it, but I'm just taking my time on it because I'm not wanting to exhaust everything and thinking, this is a journey. Rather than, I am not in competitive sport anymore. It's about a lifestyle change that I'm looking at now.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, Patrick. So obviously, last thing, just as a quick suggestion from your experience in the program and what you've changed, what would you say to someone sitting on the fence right now that are looking to work with us inside the Med Project?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, when I reflect on my journey, and if I could give any recommendation or even encouragement, what I really loved about working alongside Ollie, as I've mentioned to Ollie prior to joining the program, I've been heavily involved in sports, regional, as well as at a national level. I have a history of nutrition, not great, but I do, but also around training and what training looks like. And what I really encourage is the biggest thing for me was the accountability, but also with the accountability came the guidance and the direction. I only know what I know, and what I know, I know has probably expired in terms of where my body's at. I've gone through changes, and I need to be better informed. So having you, Ollie, on working and supporting me has allowed me to really step back. A lot of what you've done is obviously research-based, and that, whereas mine has gone off old traditions and even opinions. So it's really good having that person supporting, informing, suggesting, recommending, following up, which is the biggest part of it, is the follow-up. And I've always mentioned, and it comes back to me in terms of the accountability. So if you're really looking at really making a change in your life, I really strongly recommend this because it's worked for me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to be a part of the program, especially going through what we're going through at the moment, but especially for me, I'm in my 50s now. And so, I could say, look, I know everything there is, but when I look at what I'm espousing and I'm looking at physically at myself, there's a real mismatch in what I know and what I've been applying. But since working alongside you, there's more of an alignment between what is espoused and my practice. And the manifestation of that is, as I say, lifestyle changes that are natural and lifestyle changes that are really positive, not just for me, but for those I come into, interact and engage with. So yeah, I really do strongly recommend it based on my experience. The theory's there, the practice is there, and the results are there. If you stay on track and if you're willing to, keep your protocols and keep the consistent changes.
That's awesome, Patrick. Thank you very much for that. That's awesome. Well, yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. Was there any other questions or anything else that you wanted to clear up?
No.